Stuart West. I'm the CFO at Grammarly now.
All right. So obviously now you work at Grammarly, but what did you want to be when as a kid?
When I was a kid, I really liked computers and I
Yeah.
really wanted to do things with computers. So probably more than anything else, I thought I wanted to do something in technology or
Yeah.
startups. And that's what I've ended up doing most of my career. And it's been really fun because I feel like the thing that I really enjoyed doing as a kid, I've found a way to make a living doing.
Did you ever imagine that you'd become like the CFO of this major tech company? Was that ever a thought?
Not really. Mostly, I just wanted to build cool stuff.
Hmm.
And I didn't love programming enough to spend all my day as a
Yeah.
programmer. I ended up learning a little bit about finance, not really in school, but in my first job after college. And that just for me ended up being my way to get into companies and figure out how to help build them.
So you said you did a little bit of coding, or
Yeah, I did a little bit of coding as a kid. Like I think in like sixth grade, I had my
Hmm.
first paid programming job, which was actually writing test software for my sixth grade teacher, which was fun. And I just really enjoyed that. I liked being able to figure out how to get leverage out of computers. And I've always done a little bit of it. I still do a little bit of it, but mostly now I end up using that skill to be able to talk to programmers and technologists, and they take care of the product and technology side, and then I get to take care of the business side.
okay. So I'm guessing finance was never part of your dream.
I did not even think about doing finance until like the end of college when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I hadn't taken any finance courses or even economics courses in college, but I had the chance to go do this job that would teach me a lot of the basics about finance and let me learn about the field. And I ended up really liking it.
What do you think was like the biggest thing that led you to being a CFO, like in tech?
I think for me, it was just wanting to build things with technology. Like I had a family member who had done startups, or at least the kind of equivalent of startups at that time. And he'd always inspired me talking about all the fun problems they were trying to solve and the sense of kind of family you had in a small team that was trying to do something cool. And so, yeah, I think that's just what I wanted to do. And doing it at one company or another is just sort of ended up being the way I get to do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes the companies are cool and well known, and sometimes they're not. But in the end, it's the thing that I'm doing, which is trying
Yeah.
to help build something that I really enjoy.
When you were a kid, what was like the cool piece of technology?
Uh, it was like early computers. So,
Just
I
like
grew
basic
up in like
computer?
the 80s. Yeah. So literally like I was programming in BASIC
Oh,
and Pascal when they were still pretty new as like programming languages. And the thing I thought it was most cool is adults had no idea what to do with this stuff. And even if I only knew a little tiny bit, I still knew way more than they did.
yeah.
And I remember I got this job once where they said, "Oh, do you know how to use this computer program?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I've used it." And they're like, "Great." And they gave me the job, and I spent the first 3 days reading the manual for that computer program because I'd
Oh.
only used it just a teeny bit
Hmm.
and I had to get caught up really fast. But I thought it was cool that I could know a lot more than pretty much every adult around me about something.
How how old were you when you first had your first computer?
I first started playing with them probably in like fifth or sixth grade. Um, and I think I ended up actually having my own computer maybe in like seventh grade, or eighth grade. So it was like middle school.
The-
And, that was the
Yeah.
time that, I just really, and there just weren't a lot of computers back then. This was in
Mhm.
like the early 80s. So the first computer I did programming on, I had to go to a computer store And
Yeah.
in the evenings after the store closed, they would teach programming classes on the computers, on like the ones they had out for display. So that was how I started doing programming, was literally in a computer store, because not that many people had computers. It's a little bit different now.
Yeah. Like I don't, but you said like programming just what you weren't able to stick with it.
I think I really liked it, but I was more interested in doing things with it. So it was like the things I could do with programming that I really drew me to it. Like for me, it was like another tool I could use to solve a problem.
Mm.
And I think I was more interested in the problem that I was trying to solve than in necessarily the tool I was using. And I think that's what kind of separates me from really amazing software developers, is for them, it's like an art, and they love
Yeah.
developing the tool, thinking about new ways to use them. And for me, it's much more about the problem that I'm trying to solve. That's what I like really emotionally connect with.
I think it's the most exciting feature about Grammarly.
The coolest part for me now is that I feel like it just makes me a lot faster at everything at
Mm.
everything I do. And I like doing things fast and being able to do a lot in a certain amount of time. And like I started using Grammarly like 10 years ago, when it was more just like helping me correct my grammar or find better words to use things. And in some ways, like I love to write. It's something that's really important to me. Um, and so I started using Grammarly because it just helped me feel like I was writing very precisely. But over the last couple of years, as like new technologies have evolved, and like AI in the field of language models, we're just able to do so much more.
Yeah.
And so the big thing for me, like using Grammarly as a person who writes in his job, I think I probably spend literally half my job writing. It just makes me
Yeah.
faster, and gives me a little bit more confidence that I'm writing correctly, but also a little more confidence that I'm really writing well and making my points well. And that's cool.
How would you compare it to like the built-in, just like the normal, like you right click and click how would you compare it to that?
Yeah, I feel like it's just trying, that's like program by program, so it can look different in Google Docs or an
Mm.
email client or texting. And what I really like is that Grammarly's everywhere that I write. It's with me and it's very consistent. But then it just does a lot more. Like it's easy to help people figure out how to spell words correctly.
Yeah.
And it's kind of easy to help them figure out the basics of grammar, but figuring out how to like reframe a sentence to be more
Mm.
positive,
Yeah.
or figuring out how to like here's a point in the message you're writing that maybe you're missing, that you haven't told your audience about, that they may want to hear. So it does it the same everywhere, but then it does a whole lot more than
Yeah.
any of those individual things do.
All right. What's your favorite place to vacation?
Favorite place to vacation? I like going to the mountains.
Oh,
I
mountains.
like, yeah, skiing, hiking, camping, but in really gorgeous mountains that are very kind of serene and quiet.
Like snowy mountains or more peaceful ones?
Both snowy and summertime hiking. And I live out in California, so I go up to the Sierra Nevada a lot. And that's just a place that makes me really happy. So, and I've gotten, my kids are all into skiing, so I can generally get them to go with me and get my family to go with me,
Yeah.
which is nice.
What's your favorite movie or book?
Favorite movie or book? Um, I think I have to say Star Wars for movies. The series, they were they were out when I was growing up. It was like
Mm.
this magical thing for me. I just loved it. I like a lot of sci-fi. So maybe on books, I'll mention a book that recently got turned into a TV show called The Three Body Problem, which is a very cool Chinese science fiction book that is
Yeah.
based on neat things in physics. And I really loved that book and the series it's part of.
Have you watched Dune?
I have watched Dune, the first movie. I haven't seen the second one yet. I've tried to read the book a few times, but it's never really connected as much with me. Something about like giant worms that doesn't appeal to me quite as much. But I hear the second movie's good, so I want to go see it.
Yeah.
Have you
I,
seen it?
I've not seen it. I haven't. I started watching Dune 1 and then I don't know what happened. I didn't finish it.
Yeah.
Yeah. From what I've heard, I think Dune is based off a book, from what I've heard.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
it's a book from like the I think 70s or 80s. So
oh.
it's a kind of an older book, but it's like a super classic of like science fiction and fantasy kind of merged together.
And what do you think is the most useful book, like the most informative book you've ever read?
Most useful book I've ever read. This may not surprise you given the company I work at now, but it's like books about writing
Hmm.
because like writing is one of those things that like in junior high and high school, I didn't really like writing stuff. But when I got to college, I ended up finding I just really enjoyed trying to say something really concisely and really clearly, especially like a really complex thing.
Yeah.
So I'd say for me, like some of in fact, I have some of them behind me. Like I have some writing books up there, which is sort of like my Zoom background of a nerd, writing nerd from Grammarly. But I think like Strunk and White, which is a book on really crisp, clear English writing, is probably one of my favorite books and most useful books ever because I use it every day.
And if you could visit any planet, assuming you had some magic way to not die, what do you think would be the most interesting planet to see?
Oh, definitely a planet outside this solar system.
Okay.
So yeah, go as far away to as different a place as possible. Again, assuming magic, faster than light travel, and all those
Yeah.
things. Yeah, I think I would want to do that. I would just want to go to the most exotic, most far away place possible because it would just be really fun to see if any of the things I imagine end up actually being the way it is.
Think there's life outside of Earth?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's got to be. I think the
Yeah.
statistics and the math say that in a universe that is more or less infinite, there has to be other interesting life
Yeah.
and intelligent life. So we just haven't found it yet, and maybe that's a good thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure there's more.
And if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
If I could have any superpower, what would it be? I think I'd like to fly. It's classic superpower,
Yeah.
but easy to get around, check out the views, see the scenery, skip traffic. I think flying would be very convenient to have.
What about like mind reading though? Like couldn't that like
Mind reading could be really cool, but it could also be really scary because like
yeah.
what are you gonna find in everyone's minds? And like every now and then there's like a superhero movie about somebody who can't turn it off. So they're like
Hmm.
reading everyone's minds at once and they get totally overloaded. Like I kind of worry it might be a bit much.
I mean the only way I'd be thinking about it is like you could know exactly what the person you're talking to wanted, so you could like direct like I guess in in your job, like you'd be able to write specific, like you'd be able to like tell
Yeah.
your investors like this is exactly you know exactly what they're looking for, and you could like target. And that's the only reason why I would think mind reading would be cool because you know exactly what the because
Right.
even like you might hear some things that you never wanted to hear, but you could also hear some things that could benefit you like 10 times.
Yeah, I think that's very practical. I think it's really fun trying to figure out what people want because
Yeah,
oftentimes people don't know.
yeah.
Like they don't necessarily know what they want. So you kind of have to, it's like a journey you have to go on with them to figure out what's really important to them. So yeah, I think mind reading could be cool, but I'd rather fly.
I also found like somewhere that you were into photography and videography. I didn't like it's very that I was very surprised because it didn't say that anywhere. Is that true?
Yeah, I love it's funny, like my dad loved taking photos and kind of taught me photography and we would go on like trips to take pictures and I just loved kind of having that to share with him and I just like to me trying to capture something in a single frame some activity, some emotion, some person, some personality is like a really interesting kind of artistic challenge, is to try and tell a really big story with a single frame.
Yeah.
And I like playing with video too. Um, I got a drone a few years ago and really had a lot of fun taking and making some movies with the drone.
Yeah.
But I think still photography, I think, is really cool because it's
Yeah.
like so much storytelling in just one glance.
I really like photography, and I have a page, and I take photos. But I think in my school we have a video production class, and I'm really enjoying it. And I think, I mean, when we have these really nice cameras, and we're we're finishing filming on Monday, and I think it's really brought me, and I think I'm really enjoying filmmaking, because I think for me cameras, I mean, there's a lot of technical things in videography too, but in videography it's a lot. I feel like I don't know how to explain it. Like in photography, like a lot of it is like getting all like the adjustments and everything right. But I think something I really like about videography is like you get to like tell the story. Like I
Yeah,
like that's the interesting part to me.
yeah, yeah. But you have to think about it differently because you have to tell a
Yeah,
story in like a minute or two or three.
yeah,
And it can sometimes be really hard to tell a story well.
yeah,
But it's also a little technical. You get to play with settings and
yeah,
styles and things. So you kind of get to tinker and be a little nerdy as
yeah.
well as try to be an artist.
And that's yeah, and then I'm a bit interested in video editing, so I'm a little bit into that, but I think I'm enjoying the videography part
Yeah.
more. What's something people don't really know about you?
Something people don't really know about me. That's an interesting question. Um, I really like to bake.
Oh,
Like randomly, there's something about baking and trying to find a way to make something interesting. There's like a lot of kind of chemistry and science to it, but you end up having something really tasty to eat. And I bake a lot with my kids. It's really fun to have all of us go in the kitchen and come out with something to eat. So yeah, I don't know. That's probably something I don't talk a lot about at work. I don't bring in muffins to work, but that's definitely something that I really like doing.
all right. Do you like gas cars or electric cars more?
Oh, definitely electric cars. Yeah, I got my first electric car like 5 years ago, and
Tesla?
no, I got a Chevy Bolt 5 years
Oh,
ago because there weren't like the right size Teslas available yet. But now I have a Tesla too, and I just love them. I love not having to go to a gas
yeah.
station. I love everything being cheaper, and of course they have lots of gadgets too, which I like inside the car.
Are those your only electric cars, or
Yeah, so those two. We've got one of those. Then we still have a gas car
yeah?
that my wife drives, but we hardly ever use it. That's the one that kind of sits for a long time
Is
unused.
that
We have
the
to
one?
remember to drive it. So
Is that the one that your kids are gonna learn to use with?
they're learning on the Chevy Bolt.
Oh,
And so they've and one of my daughters already has a driver's license. The other one will get one in about a year. So they're learning drive on that, which is great.
what do you, have you heard of the Rivian?
I have, yeah, that's a really
Yeah.
cool. I've seen a couple of them. A friend of mine has one. I don't really need a pickup truck, and I don't
Oh,
really
they
need a
also yeah.
huge like SUV. Um,
Hmm.
so they're just a little bit bigger than like what I
Yeah.
tend to need in my life.
Yeah, I think
But they're
they're
very cool.
coming out soon, 2025 or 2026, with a smaller SUV. I think it's $45,000, but yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm running on time on Zoom and no more questions, but
Great. Well, it was great talking to you, Ronald.
yeah,
Thanks very much for doing this.
thank
Good
you.
luck. All right.
Bye.
Bye bye.